I had the unfortunate occasion to meet and become friends with a person that revealed himself later to have been a former child trafficker. And he admitted this to me and my wife one night. She was my fiance at the time. And this is a guy who was in a wheelchair with his legs amputated with a bizarre illness, and he had no friends. And I helped him up onto a curb one night because he couldn't get into the grocery store, and we struck up a friendship. And a few months later, we were having dinner, and he confessed to us that he believes that God had smited him with this disease and with the life that he has because he ran a so-called underground escort service for senators and congressmen with children. And I was a complete noob, and I had no political aspirations of any kind. I had no, I had no idea any of this was going on. I was living in a bubble.
Buy my novel, Escape from the Village, from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to the Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Support the forum. Go to buymeacoffee.com/fountainheadforum. Thank you. Welcome to the party, pal. This is Fountainhead Forum 207. We're talking with Jordan Page, who is a musician. I always like to encourage the libertarian creatives, whether it be music, art, movies, whatever. It's good to have them on here. And we're going to talk about censorship and making music. How are you, Jordan?
I'm doing great, Chris. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Jordan. How did you get into libertarianism, and how did you become a musician?
I've been a musician my entire life. I used to sit in my room as a little pup listening to my mom's records from the 60s on my little Fisher Price record player when I was a kid. And I would just spend hours and hours and hours listening and just absorbing music. But I got a guitar when I was about 12 years old. My family went through some crisis and trauma, and at that time, and the music and the guitar, playing the guitar, was really what saved me and got me through all of that. And it's been kind of like the central character my entire life has been music. I was playing professionally, around 2003, 2004, and I was living in Maryland and touring all up and down the Mid-Atlantic region, playing at theaters and clubs and bars, and playing a mixture of covers and originals. But my originals were really just like personal stories. And around 2006, I had a major life awakening. I had the unfortunate occasion to meet and become friends with a person that revealed himself later to have been a former child trafficker. And he admitted this to me and my wife one night. She was my fiance at the time. And this is a guy who was in a wheelchair with his legs amputated with a bizarre illness, and he had no friends. And I helped him up onto a curb one night because he couldn't get into the grocery store, and we struck up a friendship. And a few months later, we were having dinner, and he confessed to us that he believes that God had smited him with this disease and with the life that he has because he ran a so-called underground escort service for senators and congressmen with children. And I was a complete noob, and I had no political aspirations of any kind. I had no, I had no idea any of this was going on. I was living in a bubble, and this popped my security bubble around my mind in a big way, and it prompted me to start doing research and to really start digging into what's really going on in the world. There's a whole world out there that it looks like I'm missing and don't understand. And I couldn't have had a political conversation with anyone. This is 2006. So I had been doing a lot of research in 2006 after having my bubble burst. And on December the 1st, I woke up in the middle of the night after having a really terrible dream about George Bush. And I wrote a song that really was the first political song I'd ever done. And I didn't even really understand what many of the references were even about at that time. It was really sort of like a kind of like a divine gift that was given to me in the form of this song. And the song really started opening a lot of doors for me. I played it at the Ramshead on stage in Annapolis. We had a sold out show, and I was one of several artists that performed that night. And this is like, I don't know, the 16th of December or so. And I got a standing ovation for that song, but I still didn't even understand what many of the references were about. But it was like the people in the audience understood. And so that it was clear that it was incumbent upon me to, um, to go and learn what it was all really about. And so I spent, several years just doing a deep dive into the dark sea of information that exists and learning what's really going on in the world, because I had really been tuned out of it, and I feel like that was when I really grew up, was when I learned all that stuff. And so I started writing lots and lots of songs, and Pendulum started getting international radio play on XM radio, and I was getting letters from people all over the world saying that I somehow encapsulated their thoughts into this song, and oh my gosh, and it was getting picked up everywhere. I got a manager who was pushing it and pushing me, and I I I was seeing all of these doors opening because of this song, and so it was like a very clear sign from the Lord that this is what I want you to do. I don't want you playing in these bars anymore. I want you getting on national stages and talking about the things that are important. And so I really committed myself to that. I had a chance to sell my soul, and I was being courted for record deals and from several major record labels, but they wanted to control me. They wanted me to kiss the ring. They wanted me to not sing about liberty or freedom or any of the things that I was writing about. They wanted me to sing other people's songs and just be who they wanted me to be and mold me into the image that they wanted me to be. And I was just like, hell no, I can't do that. Like I have a higher calling here than like fame and fortune. There's something more important. And so I ended up getting connected with Ron Paul and his campaign. And I did, probably 2 or 3 dozen events with them. And over the course of several years, including the 2012 presidential campaign, and traveled all over the country. I've performed in all 48 continental states, the United States. And I've been all over the world, put out albums and singles, and I'm still going strong today. I mean, I took a little break around 2018 to spend more time with my family. My wife and I have 7 kids, and I had missed a lot of their early childhood, and so I didn't want to miss any more. And we still had little kids, so I took some time off, and then COVID hit, so it took some more time off. So it'd been a few years.
Yeah.
But I was still putting out songs, even still. I did a song in 2016 for Lavoy Finicum, the rancher who was killed by the FBI in the Malheur Wildlife Refuge standoff situation with the Bundys. I did a song for political prisoner Schaefer Cox in 2019, who was also railroaded by the FBI and was given 28 years in federal prison for conspiracy. He was recently released. We did a big campaign for him that year, and he was resentenced and got 11 years shaved off of his sentence. And so as of November of this past year, he was freed, thank God. And and I put out a few singles. I was on the cover of Record World magazine in 2021. And now I'm doing a song for Ross Ulbricht, another political prisoner. I write a lot of songs about real people and real things that are going on. And because I think that those are stories that need to be told. And Ross's story is one that's been on my mind for a long time. And I really wanted to get it out there. And then once Trump announced that he was going to release Ross, it was time to put the song out and really just pedal to the metal. So I did the music video and released it just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, we could you could do a song about a lot of crypto people, unfortunately, but yes, not just Ross, but so you're managing to, so obviously you're making a living because you got 7 kids. Do they have any interest now or in music, or are they how old are the kids?
16 down to 6, and my 15-year-old is actually an incredible piano player. He could be professional with an adult band at this point. He's so good. and he plays with me live and records with me, so he's pretty good. They all have unique interests. I think some of the younger ones may get into guitar here pretty soon. But so far just my 15-year-old. But he's better at piano than I am at music. He's got the natural gift, so that's pretty cool.
I played the pianos. Of course, playing the guitar probably gets you more girls.
There's something about it.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
that's how I met my wife. I met my wife at a show. She walked in when I was playing, and we shared a moment, and yeah, 20 years later.
That's really great, and you don't always hear about that many marriages. Is she does she just do? She's not into music at all. She's just a mom and doing other things, or
No, she's a teacher.
yeah.
She's a licensed teacher here in Washington, and we run and operate a homeschool classroom for the
Oh,
community. We have about 35 kids that come here twice a week. We renovated a building on our property to be like a great big one room sort of schoolhouse, and we run programs out of that. I'm also the CEO of an education technology company called Firefly Education Network, and we're building a liberty-based and a faith-based homeschool platform to help parents unplug their kids from the public school and private school systems so that they can get a great education without all of the woke garbage that is being forced down
yeah,
people's throats. And there's been a mass exodus from the school system in the last 4 years, and that is for many reasons, and not the least of which is all of the draconian and perverse policies that the Department of Education has been forcing on parents and calling them terrorists. And so we're creating an infrastructure to be a viable replacement and an alternative to the public school system. So that's at fireflyedu.org. It's being built right now. We're hoping to have our soft launch in 2025. So sign up for our email list, and stay tuned with us, because that's gonna rock the world. I'm pretty excited about that too.
by the way, Jordan, do you know about that guy who used to be the lead singer of a Rolling Stone cover band called Everest?
No.
Javier Milei.
Oh, really? That's funny.
Yes.
Well, see, I like him even more now. No, he's an interesting character. There's some things about him that are a little shady, but I think overall, he's playing on the world stage, so you're gonna be connected to shady people. But overall, I think he's really an interesting character and is doing some cool stuff. So I mean, for me, with any politician, the jury's out. Like, the proof is in the pudding. I just kind of a wait and see what they do. You listen to what they say versus what they actually do. If you just listen to what Trump says versus what he does, you know, he sounds like a scumbag. But if you actually look at what he's actually doing, there are some really good things that he's doing. I was not a Trump person when he first came on the scene. I was vehemently anti-Trump, but I've come around quite a lot since then. And speaking as a libertarian slash borderline anarchist, I'm certainly supporting him, if for no other reason than to get Ross out of jail.
Yeah.
I mean, no matter what we do, we're going to get statism. There's no escape from statism under the current structure that we have. But at least if Trump is elected, we'll have an innocent man out of jail. So
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited about that.
But I think the one thing about Milei is having been a rock singer. This is a guy who knows how to motivate people, get people excited. He knows how to read a room, and I think it probably gave him some important skills that would make you successful in politics.
Sure. There is a level of entertainment in politics. You have to be able to be charismatic and draw the crowds and like really get to the heart of what's important to people and invoke that emotional response. I found that as a musician, like as a songwriter, like that really is my goal. If I want to get anybody to feel something, or not to feel something, to care about something, you have to elicit an emotional response, because that is like the deepest part of our like humanity. We if we can connect to it emotionally, then we are more likely to expend effort to learn more about it or to put ourselves on the line for it. I mean, apathy has been such a huge obstacle to overcome all these years, just getting people to even care about their own freedom and the erosion of their liberties. So, music is a very non-threatening way to do that. um, when you're on stage with a microphone, singing songs, tend to open their doors a lot more than if you're just up there as a politician speaking. Unless you're talking to a crowd that really wants to hear what you have to say. I mean, Millet is a very charismatic speaker and is very entertaining to listen to. But it's also the substance of what he's saying.
Yeah.
He calls things out for what they actually are. He has no zero F's given, so to speak.
Yes. Yeah. Jordan, I got to ask, who are some of your musical influences?
Sure. So my first major musical influence was the Doors, Jim Morrison and the Doors. They were my first love, truly. John Denver was a singer songwriter, a huge influence. Bob Dylan was a major influence early on. Actually, I mean, throughout my life, he's been a major influence. But then it was like the Seattle bands of the early '90s: Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, Nirvana. Got really into Peter Gabriel. Got
Yeah.
really into Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd. I would say Zeppelin and Floyd were probably two of my biggest influences. Jimmy Page and David Gilmour as guitar players. I'd say like my guitar style is kind of a mixture between those two, with sentiments from Stevie Ray Vaughan and Allman Brothers. I'm a big fan of Southern rock, and Brit rock and all the
Yeah.
psychedelic stuff. Yeah.
And Stevie Ray's brother Jimmy, he was actually a supporter of Michael Bednarik back in 2004.
Yeah, I
Uh,
know Jimmy. I've actually shared the stage with Jimmy probably 4 or 5 times. We played together at the Fight for the Future rally that Ron Paul did at the RNC in 2012. I've played with him one other time since then. But Jimmy's a great guy. He's an amazing musician. He's got a killer band too.
yeah. You know, uh, because well, he was certainly very much a libertarian. What did you think of Neil Peart and Rush?
I respect all the musicians in Rush by themselves. Each individually, they are all at the top of their craft. But as a band together, it's like nails in a chalkboard. I'd rather get punched in the nuts than listen to Rush. I can't stand Rush. But if you put any of those guys in another band, it would be like the greatest band in the world. They're incredible musicians, but the music that they make together drives me insane.
Maybe it's too explicit for you, but you listen to songs like Free Will and Tom Sawyer, though. There's definitely like his mind is not for rent to any god or government. It's
Yeah, sure. Yeah, there's libertarian sentiments. I just can't. I, I
yeah,
I can't I can't get down with it.
yeah.
Otherwise,
I can't think
Geddy
of
Lee's
that.
voice drives me insane. I can't listen to it.
But the one good thing about Jordan, you hear them, it's Rush.
Well, that's true. That's true.
But yeah, yeah, that's yeah. So you actually met some people. So you actually were familiar with the Seattle scene. Have you always been in Washington?
No, I lived in Seattle when after I graduated college. I lived in
Yeah.
Seattle for a year, and played that scene, but it was pretty different by the time I was
Oh,
here.
oh, when
Um,
was that?
that was in 2002,
Oh,
2003. Or actually no, 2001, 2002. I was here. I
okay.
was
Yeah, it wasn't
I was
quite
in
yet.
Seattle for 9/11. And
Yeah,
but
but
I'm
you.
originally from Maryland. I grew up on the East Coast, and we moved out here in 2017 with the family, and
Okay.
we've been here since then. 7
Yeah,
years.
I don't know if the Seattle music scene wasn't quite as big back in 2003 as it was, 10 years before.
Oh no, not even close.
Yeah.
Not even close. It was. I called it a dried up ham. It'd been cooked too long, and there were it was a very very competitive atmosphere rather than in the early '90s, where it was much more of like a family type atmosphere between all the bands. They were all promoting each other. It was very much like headhunters when I was living there. It was tough to get a gig, but so you go, you move on. I was out there for a year. I loved the city back then. I think it's suffered quite a lot since I lived there, and it has really gone downhill, unfortunately. But I'm living the rural life, and I fly anywhere when it's time to put on my rock
Yeah.
star pants, and that's what I do. I'm actually going to be going to West Virginia next week to perform for a candidate who's a good friend of mine, Chris Anders. He's running for a state delegate in West Virginia. He's got a pretty sizable lead. Hopefully, we'll be performing at his victory party. On September 28th, I'm going to be in D.C. doing the Rage Against the War Machine rally in front of the Washington Monument. So that should be a big one. That should be pretty well attended. So I'll be there for that event. Those are the two things that are upcoming that off the top of my head that I can.
Yeah, and you've been fairly regular at Pork Fest too, I believe.
I didn't go this year, but I've been the last 4 or 5 years. I've been going since 2010. There were a couple years I skipped, but yeah, pretty regular. And those are my people. It's like family. It's just very relaxed and can just hang out with folks. And I usually do a show on the main stage, and then I do like a campsite show that usually draws about as many people. It's pretty cool. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I love Pork Fest.
Yeah, and you can go out and you have a nice big venue. You haven't gotten to play at the Gorge. Have you gotten to play at the Gorge?
No, never played at the Gorge.
Yeah, that's a big venue, right out there on the Columbia River. It's every time I talk about Washington, just how I remember the first time I saw the Columbia, I was like, oh my goodness. It was just one of those really amazing moments. You realize, there's this river is huge.
I live right on the Columbia River, actually.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. I walk to the edge of my property. I look down, and there it is.
Is it still pretty wide up there?
Oh yeah.
At Interstate 90, it's still about 2 miles wide. But you get.
Oh, it's not 2 miles where I'm at. No. But I know where you're talking about. Yeah. No, we're almost to Canada. We're about 10 miles south of the border, and so it's not quite that big up here.
Yeah. You usually fly in and out of Spokane?
Yeah. Fly anywhere from Spokane, pretty much.
Yeah. Well, it's not as many locations as Seattle, but you probably got to hop somewhere else. But yeah, but smaller airports are sometimes easier to deal with. But yeah, I always like to ask this question: what airports do you love, or what airports do you hate?
Oh wow, what an interesting question. Salt Lake City is a great airport. Dallas Fort Worth is probably one of the craziest airports that I've ever seen. It is probably maybe just the most confusing airport, one of the most confusing airports out there. BWI is my home airport, like in Maryland and Baltimore, Washington.
That's a nice
airport. I try to avoid New York as often as possible, unless I have to go there, but because for lots of reasons. But yeah, I've been to almost every major airport because I traveled so much between 2008 and 2018. Like, it was just 10 years. I thousands of flights, thousands of sexual assaults at the airport with the TSA. So I only go somewhere when I really need to go.
That's another question too. Is what do you do with your instruments when you fly?
Well, I'll either check them or put them in the overhead if the overhead will fit, or they put them in a closet for me on the plane.
Well, a lot of times, a lot of musicians are very protective of their instruments. They don't want to put them in checked luggage just because the risk of getting damaged and stuff like that.
Well, I have an airline approved case. It's like a big, strong case. But the thing is, like last year and a half ago, I did another Rage Against the War Machine rally in D.C. in front of the Lincoln Memorial, and it got international attention, and I was getting attacked by the left really, really hard for being part of this, because it was a coalition of organizations from the left, from the far left, like to the far right. People that normally would be, throwing rocks at each other were coming together on this one issue, that war is bad. And so, I was there to perform, and I got into DC, got to my hotel, took out my guitar to tune it up for the next day. And someone had reached their hand into the guitar and had ripped all the guts out of it, all the electronics. And the guitar was destroyed. There was no way I could play it. And I was running around like a crazy person the next morning before the show to try to find a luthier or someone who could repair it for me. And the only guy that was open, he didn't have the skills to do the job. So I was stuck without a guitar. I had to rent a guitar from Guitar Center right before I went on stage. But someone deliberately opened my case, stuck their hand in there, grabbed all the wires, and ripped the mount and ripped the preamp out of the guitar. So that was not an accident. That was a deliberate act. And I've no illusions about why that was. Is because of it's me, and because I was going to do this event that they didn't want to have happen. So yeah, I mean, I have had some things happen, but you just got to roll with it. You can't let it slow you down.
Yeah. What can you do in a situation like that? Can you talk to the airline or complain to them, because they really
No,
ought
they're
to
not going to do
give you the
anything.
full price of the guitar back, as far as I'm concerned.
No, they wouldn't do anything. There was a guy, something similar happened to this other guy. I remember a few years ago, and he made a song called. It was about United Airlines and how United just destroys guitars, and they were so rude to him that he made this song and made a video, and it went viral. And they offered to buy him a new guitar if he would take the song down, and he was like, "F you, I'm gonna keep it up." This is more fun than getting a new guitar from the likes of you all. So, no, I had no illusions that that anybody was gonna do anything for me. But I actually had a fan who's a donor. Donate money to have the guitar fixed, and
Yeah.
I got a new preamp, and it was one that I wanted. I'd been wanting for a long time, so it all worked out, and I still got to play the show. And yeah,
I look at it this way. You're a customer, and you're probably a pretty. You're a high use a high. You're a customer who flies a lot. I would look at it. Well, I don't want to piss this guy off. Let's do something for him. It's unfortunate that you. Yeah, but anyway,
just another number, Chris. Just
yeah,
another number to them. And but I just flew to Nashville to be part of the Bitcoin conference. I saw you there.
yeah,
And that was a pretty interesting event. I performed the new song "Free Ross" about Ross Ulbricht. Ross Ulbricht, for those of
yeah.
you who don't know, is the founder of the Silk Road website that was given 2 life sentences plus 40 years without parole in the federal system for building a website, building an e-commerce website. Now, granted, there were illegal things happening on the website, but Ross was actually out of the picture at the time that he was arrested, and there were 2 corrupt FBI agents who were running the site and running his account, and they basically tried to pin the whole thing on Ross. Everyone else in that case got the majority of them got less than 10 years. There was one guy that got a little more, but the average sentence in the Silk Road case was about 6 years. And most of the people that were charged are now out of prison, but Ross is in there for 3 life sentences, essentially. So
Wow,
uh,
yeah,
this is very much a political prisoner, very unjust sentence, far and beyond what the prosecution asked for. He was, vilified by the media and condemned by the public based on slander and lies and fabrications. And basically, they gave him this sentence because he gave Bitcoin its first public marketplace, and that's what made it take off. This was a threat to the central banking hierarchy, the drug war policies, so many things. Silk Road was a slap in the face to those institutions, and so they really just like railroaded Ross. And so this pledge by President Trump to free him on his first day in the next term is the clearest path to victory to getting him out that we've seen since 2013. So he's been in, for 11 years, and it's time to get him out. So I'm pretty excited about it, and just released a song actually on the 26th of July while I was performing at the Bitcoin conference in Nashville. I released it around the same time I went on stage, so that was pretty cool.
If it's political capital, that's one thing the current administration could do right now. Hey, Trump's running on this free Ross thing. Okay, well, we'll let him out, and Trump can't do it.
Sure. But it does even now it doesn't change anything.
Yeah.
I mean, the Harris campaign is adopting lots of Trump's campaign promises and policies because they see how popular that is, and they know that they're on the wrong side of these issues, and they just want more votes. You know, they'll both parties do this, but the Democrats are just so famous for it. They'll sell their mother out for a vote. You know, I mean, Kamala Harris is flipping her race and ethnicity on a dime. You know, think she's not going to flip policies on a dime just to suit whoever she's trying to get to vote for. Yes. I mean, it's despicable. So yeah, they could free Ross, and I'd be all about that. You know, I'm excited to get him out of prison. But yeah. This, you know, they're not going to do it. They did get Julian Assange out, as I believe, very much as a direct response to Trump's pledge to free Ross. But they didn't commute his sentence. They didn't. It wasn't like that. They made him plead guilt. He had to plead guilty to get out. So they didn't do him a solid in that regard. But I'm just glad that he's out of jail. I mean, that's a blessing. I actually got to meet Julian Assange's brother in D.C. Back in May. We did an event at the Libertarian National Convention called Enemies of the State Bash, where we highlighted Ross and Julian and Roger Ver, who was in prison in Spain at the time, and Ian Freeman and a number of others, like Edward Snowden, and all enemies of the state.
Roman Sterlingov. Yeah, Roger. I think Roger's still. I haven't gotten an update on Roger's status, but I think Roger still might be in. I don't know.
No, he got out. He got out.
Roger's out. That's good to know.
He's out. He was in the same prison that John McAfee was in, which was kind of strange.
Yeah. I'm glad Roger's out. You know, it's very, very interesting. You know, the whole. I mean, you've completely left the tax system, given up your citizenship, and they still try to come after you. I mean, it's.
Well, they don't want there to be millions of Roger Veres running around. And, you know, he just released this book, Hacking Bitcoin.
Oh, yes.
And hijacking Bitcoin. And like a week later, you know, they come and get him because he basically just blew the lid off the entire banking system with this book. And so, you know, they can't have that. So it's no surprise, but I'm glad that he was able to get out.
Yeah, it does. It does blow the bankies. And did we want to watch that video, the Ross video, Free Ross? Yeah, we can share that right now if you want to share that now.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah.
And this is on all major streaming platforms. If you want to listen to the song, it's on YouTube and Twitter for the video. Please share it. And hope you guys enjoy it.
On day one, I will commute the sentence of Ross Ulbricht to a sentence of time served.
Is there anywhere on earth where a man can still be free? Will he bear the weight alone, or will he have to bend the knee? Is there no one in this land who grows tired of the game, where the wicked gather stones and build up prisons in our name? There's a story that you've heard before. It's been told in every age of a gentle soul misplaced inside a cage. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Free Ross, whoa, whoa. Free Ross. An honest and philosopher, embattled by the steel of a cell designed to force all men to kneel. But he's patient and determined in his endless duel with time, in a sentence unbefitting of his crime. Will you bend your ear to listen? Will you turn your face to see the injustice staring back at you and me? Whoa, whoa, whoa. the boy he was is gone. And there's no pretending, living day to day, and death he carries on. There's a fire inside that burns in you and me, and the truth denied is what will set it free. And the years go by like strangers in a dream, and the reasons why are more than what they seem. I'm awake tonight, and his spirit spoke to me. I can't beat the light, said Russell, break through. Free Ross, Free Ross.
That was good. Who did your graphics for that?
I did that all myself, actually. I've become a video editor, and I've been working a lot with a lot of AI image generation and animation and video editing. So I did it myself. I didn't go to Porkfest this year, and just a couple of circumstances prevent me from going, and I was kind of bummed. And I said, well, I'm going to spend this week doing something productive, and I made that video.
Oh, so, and you basically are your own record company too. You kind of do everything, don't you? You can do that nowadays.
You can, yeah. I have a producer in Nashville that really gets me, top-notch broadcast ready recordings. He's awesome. But I record my parts here and I send them to him, and he produces my work. He produced that song.
And the internet's made all of this so much easier, though. And then you do most of your own publishing distribution, or?
Oh yeah, there's really no need to get the big people to do that for you. Like, the big companies will want to be able to completely control you and to control your masters and to control meaning your master recordings, and really, it's a complete, the music industry is a complete sham at this point, and I mean, most of the folks that you have heard of are deep into occultist satanic stuff, and that's just not me.
Yeah, and they also take such a cut too. I mean, when you hear some of those stories, about, well, we had this number one selling album, but they're not. But like, what was the like the year 1995 when TLC's take home pay was like $60,000 or something like that.
Yeah, and they were one of the biggest groups in the world. Yeah, I mean that's. I think that was an extreme example. I think things can be better if you have a decent entertainment attorney, but for them to even give you the time of day at this point, you have to have sold hundreds of thousands, if not a couple million units on your own before they'll really want to talk to you. So, and I'm not there. You know what I mean? Like I've had some great success. I haven't had like mainstream success, but it's okay, right? Like I'm making the music that I want to make, and writing songs about things that are important, and they'll do what they're meant to do. Like, this is it isn't about me, and it shouldn't be about me. It should be about the music and about what I'm writing about.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the position I've always taken. I could have had that life if I had wanted it, and I said no. I would rather be a whole person and not sacrificing my soul to Moloch. So I'm out here just a troubadour of conscience and a voice in the wilderness, and that's okay. I'm right where God wants me to be, and I'm doing lots of fun stuff, trying to be a disruptor as much as possible.
That's what I was thinking when things like Napster came out. I said they're not worried about piracy. What they're worried about is that the really talented people are just going to completely go their own way. That's what really scared them about the internet. I don't know.
It was all about control. That they had a death grip on everyone's art, and now everyone can make it. So, but now we have AI art that's happening. And of course, and AI animation, and there's AI music now, and so. But I think down the road, you will see that there will be a premium put on human art again, and human art will be. It'll be more of an appreciated medium, I would say, more so than it is right now, because the world is just saturated with all forms of art, and so there's everybody and their mother's a guitar player, right? So you really have to stand out. You have to make art that really means something, I think, and it isn't like in the old days where anybody picks up an instrument and all of a sudden they're a star. There's a lot of people that were super famous in their day that wouldn't be today, but because the world is just so saturated. But I think with all of the artificial intelligence tools that are out there creating art of all the different forms, including music, eventually I think human music and human art will be appreciated again. So,
well, you can't have AI do it live, of course.
That's true.
What did you use to make your graphics exactly? Dolly or?
Well, I use Midjourney and Pika, to create, and Venice.ai to create base images, and I use Runway and Pika to animate them. Generally, there's other tools out there too that are great that I'm exploring, but Runway and Pika are my go-tos.
Yeah, there's a lot of things going out there. It's really growing. There's been talking about AI getting together with crypto, and even AI doing crypto trading and making music and stuff like that. It's a very interesting time to live in. I do hope it. I don't want to see it replace real music, because I think it's. I guess I just don't see how it can, because there's so much of the creative process involved in there. But it's also cool when somebody can use AI and make I found this on YouTube, Frank Sinatra singing Bohemian Rhapsody.
Sure. Those things are fun. Yeah. I mean,
that was really fun. Yeah.
There's a large debate to be had about all of this stuff. I'm actually making a film right now about this very subject. And it should be coming out within 2 or 3 months. So I'm very engaged in it. I was very skeptical of AI when it first came out, because I've seen all the movies. I've seen The Matrix. I've seen The Terminator. I've seen all these, iRobot, and what people should be worried about is not artificial intelligence, but artificial generative intelligence, because that's what companies like Singularity are doing, and others, not just Singularity, but they're doing AGI, and AGI to me is the genesis of Skynet and The Matrix. I mean, those are scary tools, and that show signs of real sentience and true creativity, and it's really dark, scary stuff. When you get down into it. I was at a crypto conference last summer, and Singularity gave a presentation about AGI, and it really scared me. It really did. I was like, this is very concerning. So but tools like animation tools and art generation tools aren't going to be taking over the world and getting their hands on the nukes. You know what I'm saying? Not no more than like ChatGPT is, but there are other types of models out there that are in that category, and that we should be concerned about. And there should be a debate about that.
You know, I should have thought to ask you this sooner. What was I think there were some musicians who, you know, I think about Eric Clapton and Van Morrison speaking out against the coronavirus nonsense, but it seems like a lot of musicians didn't say a word. What happened, even though this directly impacted their bottom line in so many ways?
Well, the bottom line on that issue is that most mainstream artists are owned, and they say what they're allowed to say. It's just like, you know, movie stars and politicians. You know, I mean, they're 90% of Washington is run on blackmail. Do you think that Hollywood is any different? I'd say it's a higher percentage runs on blackmail. And so, you know, you don't speak out or you get exposed. You get locked down. You get killed. You know, I mean, they're highly disincentivized from speaking out, even if they have things to say. So, you know, someone like Eric Clapton, who's in his, you know, late 70s, early 80s, like he doesn't care. What does he care? You know?
Yeah, that's true. He's already been established. He's gotten to the point where he's anti-fragile, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't bite the hand that feeds you. You kiss the ring and you shut your mouth and you make your millions and you have that life, but you sell your soul in the process. And but people like Eric Clapton. I mean, Eric Clapton he was vaccine injured, so he's he's speaking out about it, which I loved. I'm sorry to see that he was injured, but I'm glad to see that he's out there.
Yeah, Van Morrison was just speaking out more. Said, "Hey, I want to do concerts. I want to put on shows for people." He was. And I have to admit, I was never a big fan of Van Morrison until that. Yeah. It's.
But you see, both of those guys are from the same generation. They're from an older generation, and they're just calling BS on what's happening today. You know, we live in this mad clown world, and we have to speak sanity. And a lot of the younger artists, they grew up, in a different kind of era, and they're, accepting of these kinds of things. But again, I really am very strong on this, that these, all the major areas of control in the world are run on blackmail and occult practices. And, people you'd have to be, if you're in that, you'd have to be crazy to speak out against it or have a death wish. A lot of people who do speak out against it end up dead. So, they don't want to end up dead. So they're not going to say anything.
I don't know if you want to comment on this, but sometimes I do hear some various conspiracy theories about some of these people who die at a young age. And one that comes to my mind is Aaliyah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a lot of these people get sacrificed. People like Heath Ledger, Matthew Perry. I mean, there's lots of them. Yeah. There's a long list. Now we're not talking about children, child stars. Yeah. We're talking about like young adult stars. But yeah, they get sacrificed. They get murdered. Even people like Chris Cornell and Robin Williams and Chester Bennington. All these people were, it's deemed a suicide, but it's obviously clear like they were murdered, and they were all murdered in the same way to send a message. So, you have to do your research, recognize the signs and the patterns, and it's really not rocket science. It's dark and twisted and evil and super, super sad. And I've been fortunate and unfortunate in my knowledge base in the last 20 years, that it has just completely everything. I recognize what COVID was and and that there was going to be a vaccine on day one. I maybe not 100% day one, that there was a little bit of fear, I think, but my first thought is, what are they doing now? What are they releasing on us now? What is this a bioweapon? And of course it was. And so was the vaccine. So you just have to, I tell my kids all the time, you have to assume what you're being told on the news is a lie. But then think, why do they want me to believe this? What is the reason why they're trying to get me to get on board with this? What do they want to accomplish with it? Don't just accept things at face value. So.
True. Yeah. Of course, you could also ask yourself, how are all five members of Aerosmith still alive, and how are all four members of Motley Crue still alive, considering all the self-destructive behavior they engaged in? Uh, sounds like it sounds like you've kept yourself pretty much clean, and I'm glad to hear that. But
Oh, I live a very clean life. I'm very
yeah,
healthy, and
but
no destructive behaviors. I'm in a loving marriage, and happy, healthy children, and I'm the antithesis of what the kind of life that they would have wanted for me. So I think I did pretty good.
it kind of makes
So
me wonder if why that happens. Why some of them do get into that. And you do hear some of them do manage to resist it, but it's but a lot of them, it's quite unfortunate, and some
fame and fortune is a cruel
it's not
mistress.
always good. And not to mention, unfortunately, private planes generally they're not nearly as safe as commercial, but you hear all those stories, about people on various private planes, whether it be Leonard Skinner, Jim Croce, or Buddy Holly. We've lost quite a few good people to those. It's just, and sometimes it's just, you also usually don't have a pilot who's as experienced as, the pilots you would get if you fly with Southwest Airlines. But
Yeah.
So, well,
I've enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, I
Chris.
have to. Yeah. Anything else you want to say before we go?
I'd just like to encourage people to sign the petition for Ross Ulbricht. You can find it through freeross.org.
Yes.
Would love for you to share the video on YouTube and Twitter. Just look up Jordan Page Free Ross and you'll find it. I'm going to be in DC on the 20th of September for the Rage Against the War Machine rally. I believe that website is rageagainstwar.com. And my website is jordanpage.net, and you can see the Free Ross video that we showed in this interview there, as well as Twitter and YouTube. And check out fireflyedu.org. That's my education platform.
Yes.
It's forthcoming next year, and get on our email list and get your kids signed up. And it's going to be awesome.
And of course, it was that Rage Against the Machine video where I first learned about Leonard Peltier. So it's you can make a difference there.
Yeah.
And Leonard's been in jail for a long, long time. So
long time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Jordan Page. Please like my video, subscribe to the channel. You can go to buymeacoffee.com and help me out there, and check out my Substack. Thank you, Jordan Page. It's been great having you on here, and we're out.